What is up, guys? Welcome to the Zack Scriven podcast. Today's podcast, I have a very special guest lined up. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. Sponsoring today's episode of the Zack Scriven podcast is Intellic Integration, Zack Scriven Media, and Udemy, the online instruction course that you guys should sign up for using the link in the video description. So today's guest, he has over 25 years in the automation business, working as an automation specialist, working on Allen Bradley PLCs, PACs, HMIs, and SCADA software. Over the course of his career, he spent over 50 weeks in Rockwell training. For well over a decade, Rockwell Automation even featured some of his work inside of their demos. Today, he's running his own self-employed business, and he's the largest independent online automation training website, the Automation School, and he's the author of the internet's most popular independent automation blog, theautomationblog.com, where he answers all sorts of questions. And he was nice enough to be on the podcast today. So give me a hand in welcoming Mr. Shawn Tierney. Mr. Shawn Tierney, how's it going? Good morning.
Doing good. How's everything over there?
I'm doing awesome. You're live on the Zack Scriven podcast. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me this morning. And all the listeners and viewers, thank you guys for tuning in to stop by to see what this man with a wealth of knowledge, PLC, Allen Bradley, knowledge has to share with us. So for the viewers that don't know you, maybe they haven't followed your automation blog, why don't you give them a little background about how you got started in the industrial controls business, and maybe talk a little bit about how you transitioned to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And first, thank you for having me on the show. It's definitely my pleasure to be here, and very excited to be here. I went to school for electronics, and most people in controls got there from electrical engineering, but I went to school for electronics, and about halfway through the degree program, I got my associate's degree and decided to get married and start a family. So I don't recommend that as a way.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that as a way to get started. But after a false start working for a defense contractor, my wife and I moved halfway across the country, and there was an ad that said, "You must know PCs and PLCs." So, it's a job ad. And back then we used to use something called the newspaper. And I told my wife, I says, it's just an L.
Yeah, I mean, add the L.
I had been using computers since I was a preteen. I had a Commodore VIC-20, a TI-99. We had Apple IIs in schools. And I literally spent my childhood, because, of course, we had no cable TV back then. At least we did it in the boondocks.
Yeah.
I programmed, and I loved the program. And, if I could go back to school, I tell the story to my kids. If I could go back to college, go back to being 18 again, I would have went probably for programming versus electronics. Even though I love electronics, you can see all the gadgets I got here. Yeah, I love this stuff. I got boxes full of electronics and circuit boards, and I've been building computers ever since I was like 10. But yeah, so I got into that. That's how I got into the business, totally by accident. And I work in tech support for a distributor, and I spent 25 years as a distributor specialist. So I got to go and visit electrical engineers for 25 years and help them get their PLCs, HMIs, VFDs, SCADA systems running. I got several certifications over the years with Rockwell. And it was a great job. Absolutely phenomenal job. I've met so many great people in facilities in the Northeast and down South. And so many good friends, vendors, other distributors, end users, controls engineers. And those people have taught me like everything I know. These people were phenomenal. And what I try to do today is give back. It's give back everything I learned too. One of the things I found over those 25 years was there is a real desire among people in facilities and even people at OEMs to learn. But the cost of industrial factory training is expensive, and it has to be. If anybody who's run a business, what it costs to have an instructor on staff, 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
And because you're going to pay him 52 weeks a year, it doesn't matter if he gets 4 weeks of vacation or not. You still pay. Being a business owner, all these things come to mind. There's no such thing as vacation when you own your own business. It's
Yeah.
or I should say, paid vacation. Nobody pays you to take time off. But
Yeah. Yeah.
long story short, there's a lot of people who want to learn more, but they don't have the $2,000 and a week to go to the factory, and that's what the factory has to charge to even break even. And so that's what I do. But just sharing what I learned over the last 25 years from all those awesome people. I mean, the list is too long to name all the people who've taught me things over that time, but it was a fun job. The one reason I left back going on 3 years now was the driving. I had done over 1 million miles,
Oh, wow.
and I've been to the moon and back, and back to the moon. And I'm a doer. I had a lot of nervous energy. I can't stop doing stuff. I got to always be doing something.
Yeah.
And self-driving cars were just not coming fast enough. I'm like, what's up, guys? Come
Yeah.
on. I need a self-drive. That would have been perfect. But I'm a doer, and pulling over on the side of the Northway to show somebody how to add a button in a panel view,
Yeah.
while traffic going 75
Mm.
miles an hour it just wasn't for me. But it is a great job, though. It's a great job, especially if you like driving. But that's my short story in a nutshell. Was that too long?
No, that's perfect. I find that very interesting because I kind of find myself in a similar position to you, especially with that driving that kind of hit home. The cat's out of the bag now. Everyone knows that I quit my job last week in controls to start up doing content creation, media creation full time. So I'm kind of curious as to how your path has been over the last 3 years. What are some of the ups and downs? Maybe talk a little bit about how you like monetize, like what are your different streams of income? Because that'd be kind of interesting from my perspective. Like is it AdSense, Udemy sales, course sales? Like kind of give us a picture of what that pie looks like. Do you do a little bit of programming still on the side to help out, or because I'd be really interested to know if you're able to share some of that information.
And those are great questions. And let me know if I go too long, because
Oh, no problem.
And what a journey. I mean, it has been. Well, I should back up. I've always been into computers. I had my first website back in 1999. Some of my dearest and closest friends know ShawnMichael.com was my first original website. And I've always had three things on that: tech, automation, and gaming. I'm a gamer. I'm a big time gamer. I have 2 live streams every week gaming.
Oh, nice. I didn't even know.
So besides, putting 60 hours here in at Insights and Automation and the automationschool.com, I call that my part-time job. So the wife is super. She gives me 2 nights a week off. The rest of the week I try to spend with her. So I've always had those 3 passions. And I had a bulletin board back in 95. I talked my boss into, or 96. I talked my boss into letting me start a bulletin board for my customers, because they needed files. Like I needed to find a way to get them files. This is like before people, most people only had dial-up.
You'd have to send like a floppy drive in the mail or something.
Exactly. And then they're like, and of course I was working in Rhode Island, and driving a half an hour in Rhode Island's kind of like, man, we got to pack an overnight bag. I'm going to drive for 30 minutes. It's like, geez, I ain't going to do that. No way. But the thought of actually driving a floppy disk to somebody who was 35 minutes away was unheard of. And I'm picking on my I grew up in Rhode Island, so I'm picking on all my Rhode Island friends because I got this awful accent from you guys. So, but,
I actually don't mind. I like it.
So I put together the BBS. I started my first website in 1999. With automation stuff, I was doing the software specialist thing at the time, so a lot of RS-View32. I am like the world's biggest RS-View32 fan here. I actually designed Space Invaders inside of
Awesome.
View32.
That is sweet.
Yep. But yeah, so I've always had websites, always wrote about everything I was doing. It was just something I like to do. I don't know why. I was on CompuServe and Prodigy back in the day with the dial-ups with the Commodore. So long story short, I always felt the need to share the information, because a customer would run into a problem, right? And they'd be like, I don't know how to fix this. You know what I'm saying? And you want to help not just that one customer. You want to help everybody.
Yeah.
And so by putting stuff on the net, you can put it in one place and don't have to mail the floppy, right? And so that was the huge thing for me. So rebooted my efforts back 5 years, almost 5 years ago with the automationblog.com, and been doing that since. And with the goal to try to get away from doing the drive.
Okay.
I live in an area that's I live in the Berkshires. Not a lot of industry in the Berkshires. Most of our industry consists of empty big buildings that used to be industry, but are no longer industry. And I should say I usually over exaggerate things, so please don't take offense anybody who lives in the Berkshires. But yeah, we don't have the industry like a Boston does. So it was either that or move, and I just love where I live. My family's here, my kids are here, my grandkids are here. So in any case, so that was the impetus of saying, hey, I've done 1 million miles. I want to get off on my own. Let me start a website. And then I also had a Kickstarter where I did my first, I don't think I have it handy, my first training, which was good, but I've learned so much since then. So I did a Kickstarter, released my first PLC training CD and or DVD, and that's how the business started. But I guess just start off the bat, even though I spent 2 years building this office and blogging
before you went full time.
Before I went full time 3 years ago, it wasn't a full time income. When I decided to leave at 25 years, it was still like, I'm glad my wife has a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you'll hear a lot of people say it takes 3 years for a business to get off the ground, and that's not true for every business, but for many businesses it is. And it's a time thing. It takes, and everybody has their own formula, and everybody will have a different level of success at different times. And there's a learning process too. And I'm an old guy, so I learn slower than most people, but the business is doing good now. I mean, most of the business is from training, and I love my training customers. I did some on Udemy. I'm still on Udemy for some courses. I learned a lot about Udemy. And one thing I would tell people is, when you look at selling something you've created, you got to look at the marketplace. And the one thing I'll say about Udemy is it's a great marketplace, but you get between 25 to 45% of the sale of the course. So if you sell a course for $100, you're going to get probably $25. And then the people typically will mostly buy the courses that go on sale for $10. Now, this rack of control logics cost me $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm selling courses at $10, you got to
sell a lot of courses.
Yes, and if the courses are $100 and I sell them at $10 a piece, but I'm only getting $25 per course, it takes a long time. Pay for this. I'm not even talking about the software I had to buy from Rockwell, right? I'm just talking about this used rack of control logic. So, Udemy is great, I think, for many cases, but not when you need to buy $5,000 to $10,000 worth of equipment. You probably, in my opinion, it's going to be difficult to make your money back.
Okay.
And that's why I don't. That's why I mostly focus on selling through the automation school. I have some beginner courses because I know there's some people around the world who don't have a lot of money. Yeah. So I have some beginner courses on Udemy, but almost everything I do is on the automationschool.com because it enables me to, I can continue to expand the courses. So my goal is not only giving everybody a lifetime copy of the courses, but to expand I have the inexpensive, and then I have the expanded courses. And the expanded courses, I plan to grow as long as I can, as long as I'm here on this earth, continue to grow those courses and add new things. So, which is fun because I just love working with this stuff.
That
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Definitely one of the big ones was like when you first started, kind of goes without saying, like there's going to be a certain level of uncertainty. If it was just that easy to start up your own business, then, everyone would do it. There's got to be some risk in order to have some reward. And likewise, similar to you, I find a lot of it's very fulfilling to like help someone. And I like that same concept. If I'm going to help one person, I want to help hundreds of people. And like when I was working on control engineering projects, I felt like I was just helping that one customer. But like I did a plant packs video the other day. That thing has like thousands of minutes of watch time. Like people watched the whole 2 hours, and someone even messaged me, and I went and met up with them and did some personal training. And it's like, to be able to know to have that much broader impact, it's like very satisfying. But I am a little bit of a programmer myself too. Like I love doing the code as well. But like this kind of allows me to do a little bit more of what I want, and also like stay at home with the family. So yeah, that's really the driving force, and it's why I'm kind of not afraid to take that leap and venture off into the unknown.
Yeah, and I mean, if in my case, I live in the middle of nowhere, so you know, any visit to any plant site is over an hour, except for the guys. There's a couple of plants right down the street, but not many. So for me, you know, as soon as I left the job, people would say, "Come do training, come." It's like, you don't want to pay me for 4 hours to sit in the car. You know, I'm just gonna. I mean, 4 hours of your
Yeah.
PO is going to be for me just doing nothing but driving.
Yeah.
And so, but if you live in a metro area, then, you know, you can be places in 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. And it can be definitely a good way to not only maintain your skill set, but also to cultivate your customer base. And
Right.
I've talked to several companies. I probably should have made a list, but there's some great people out there I've connected with who actually do on-site training, and they love it. They have trailers hooked up to the back of to their cars and trucks, and they love doing it. And it is a lot of fun. It's just you know, you have to be in the right area of the country to do that, or maybe not so worn out from the drive like I was when I left. But helping people, like you said, being able to post at once and help people is just, it's a good feeling. And I think anyone who, if you're not in, I would say this, if you're not in one of the big uh, super categories like fitness, okay, or food, okay, or you know, dating advice, then you're probably going to have to do something else besides just blog
Right.
to make an income. So if you look at any of the big YouTubers, right, most of them make most of their money from endorsements and
Right.
not from their YouTube revenue. There are some people who make it just through YouTube revenue, but even in blogs, right? If you look at what Google pays out, I mean, it covers the cost of the server. That's great, but doesn't even come close to covering my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The time to write an article, a good article, a well thought out article, and not that mine always are, they're not always very good, but it takes a lot of time, and just even proofreading. Even people don't realize. I tell the story a lot. When you make a video, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to make a professional video, you got to be prepared that it could be 20 to 100 to 1. Okay, so you have a 1 minute video. If you're doing
20 minutes.
professional
Yeah.
videos, you know, it's probably 100 minutes to do it right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you
With
look at it,
editing, uploading, marketing, posting,
oh, absolutely. I mean,
planning.
there's retakes. Okay, so
Yeah.
retakes, like, so in some of my courses, I'm trying to explain a very complicated, you know, let's take plant packs, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing a course that's going to be on DVD and on video forever, right? You kind of want to put the extra work in to make sure you convey I mean, you can always update it later, but you want to take the time ahead of time to make sure that this is like, you know, going to be right the
Yeah. And
first time.
people are paying their money for it. So
Exactly. So you want to make sure it's right, and especially if it's going on DVD, because that's permanent. That'll be out there forever, you know.
yeah.
So so yeah, so there's a lot of reshots. Like I always tell people about the TV show 24. I was a big fan of that. Um, it took for a 145-minute episode, it took them over 40 hours to produce one 45-minute episode, and that's 40 hours of, you know, a team of dozens and dozens of people, cameramen, script writers, you know, lighting. So you know, if you can do off the cuff stuff where, you know, for free, and I try to do more of that, try to do
Yeah.
more off the cuff
That's
stuff for YouTube, the free stuff. And then if people like me, most of my customers actually found me either on the blog or YouTube, and they said, you know what, he's not all that bad. I'm going to buy one of his courses.
yeah. Yeah. That is pretty good. I could definitely relate. One of my biggest bottlenecks when I was like doing YouTube, kind of more as it's always been like something that I've done since I was young, but one of my bottlenecks was always editing. I would like have all these ideas, no lack of ideas, no lack of footage, but then it'd get to my computer hard drive and then just kind of sit there. So one of the ways I kind of broke through that was like by doing live video, and that way I kind of had no choice but to act and kind of you know, not free lib, but improv, right? And then that way, once I was done, the video was over. And even if like not that many people watched that video, it was important in building my skill set and building my comfort in front of the camera, building my, you know, negotiating and interpersonal, not negotiating, communication and interpersonal skills. So that's kind of what's been working for me. And, you know, like I put the content out there for free. So that, you know, the production quality may not be as high as some of the curated content like yours, but I think, you know, there's room for both in the marketplace. And it's cool that we're doing this podcast, because now people that follow me can, you know, and they're not aware of your content, I can expose them to that. And it's funny you mentioned Udemy, because I did a little bit of work in upcoming to this, and I got set up with an affiliate marketing program for Udemy. So down in the, and there's a little commercial break we're coming up on here pretty soon, but down in the link I'll have a affiliate code for Udemy, and I highlighted one of Shawn's courses. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to sign up for Udemy using that affiliate link to kind of help support the show. But no more plugging. So my question for you is, I've noticed on your YouTube channel you don't allow video comments. Is there a reason for that, or?
Yes, and it was a tough decision to do that, but if you think about all of the sites, well, I'll back up for a minute and say I don't do consulting anymore. I was doing consulting, and you know, I believe in win-win scenarios, and the most win-win scenario that I have is my training courses, because I can not only give somebody a course that I know is good, that, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, of people from over 50 countries have rated 4.8 stars on average. But I can give them support too. So I'm there every morning at theautomationschool.com or afternoon, you know, answering questions, right?
Okay.
And so that's a win-win, because they get something that's less than a video game, that they can, a video game console that they'll have for life, that'll expand and grow. And, you know, I'm there if they have a question. On YouTube, there was a lot of snarky remarks, okay, which I'm used to on my gaming channel, which I don't care. You just ignore them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of snarky remarks. And then there was a lot of people who, and I don't know if it's just the demographic or the audience, but there were a lot of people who thought that you owed them something.
Yeah.
And so, but you don't make any money from answering comments, you know. So what I do instead is I have a free forum. And
to drive the conversation over to there.
Yes, and the reason is I can actually, you know, they can share files with me. We had last week we had a gentleman who, a very nice man. He's like, I can't get this file to work. I said, just upload it to the forum. I took the look at it. I pointed out what I thought the problem was. So I can actually post pictures. I can post links directly to my blog. It allows me, if you know, and it's a win-win for me. So if you're willing to take the 2 minutes to create a login on the forum, I can actually really help you. I can give you a screenshot, a real link to either a manual or to an article, and we can converse. We can share files and screenshots. YouTube, you can't. And again, taking out the half of the comments that were snarky.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a shame.
The other half of you just couldn't. You know, you couldn't. You know, the interaction was so limited. You know, so that's why I have the forum. I've been running forums, well, BBSs and forums for a long time. So it's just it's easy for me. And I actually moved all comments out of the blog to the forum. So if you go to automationblog.com, you want to make a comment, it actually goes in the forum again.
Okay. Because
I can share pictures and we can share files, and the interaction we can have for somebody who truly just doesn't want to be snarky and leave a snarky remark. You know, the interaction there is high quality and professional. It's more, you know, more akin to, you know, we can actually help each other and give each other real stuff, real information.
Thank you for that explanation. That makes a lot of sense. I really do like the community that you're building, and you know, you've helped me out half a dozen times in the last, you know, 6 months. So we're gonna take a quick break for some commercials, and don't leave, because Shawn Tierney and I have so much more to talk about. Yeah, he said don't leave. So just take a quick look at these commercial breaks. Thank you. Thank you to Intellic Integration for sponsoring this episode of the Zack Scriven podcast. Intellic Integration solves puzzles for a living. They're a full-service system integrator specializing in automotive, SCADA, MES, and OEE solutions. Using a T-based team model, they construct teams of subject matter experts so you guys don't have to. Take a look at the link in the video description to learn more about Intellic. And thank you again to Intellic for being a sponsor of the entire Automation Month here on the Zack Scriven podcast. Thank you to Udemy for being a sponsor of this episode of the Zack Scriven podcast. Udemy is an online learning on demand website where you have all sorts of courses to learn from database to Python to Photoshop to PLC. So if you take a look and you just search Shawn Tierney, the guest of today's podcast, you can see that he has a couple courses available on Udemy in addition to his automation school. But if you sign up using the link in the video description, I do get a small commission of any courses that you do buy. But if you look at this, using CCW with AB VFDs, it's only $10.99. So it's running a huge discount right now. Again, make sure to sign up using the link in the video description. Any Udemy course that you do buy, I will get a small commission for referring you guys, and it will help out the podcast a lot. But yeah, definitely go check a look at Mr. Shawn Tierney's courses on there because they are super affordable. And I'd like to thank him, for being on the Zack Scriven podcast. So let's get back to the show. And we're back. Thank you guys for watching that quick commercial break. Yeah, so like I said, thank you Intellic for sponsoring today's video, and also Udemy courses, and thank you to Shawn Tierney. So if you guys like what Shawn is doing, you like what I'm doing, make sure to sign up for Udemy and check out some of his courses. They're on sale right now for like $10. So and then venture on over to his automation school, and they have some really amazing content at really affordable prices. So thank you, Shawn.
No, you're welcome. And if anybody's watching this and you want to take a course at theautomationschool.com, if you buy the one at Udemy, I'll give you the list price discount on the one at the Automation School. So if list price is $20 in Udemy, I'll give you a coupon for $20 off, because some of the lessons are going to be the same. So I don't want you to have to pay for the same lessons twice.
Yeah, and Shawn, and Insights in Automation is not paying me to say this. I'm just really thankful that Shawn is doing it. Although I will accept you as a sponsor for future shows. But I like the Udemy thing because then that way I can kind of work off of an affiliate link and a commission deal. Whereas some of my other partnerships are more so just a one-time fee for a specific ad spot. I don't know if you got a chance to see one earlier this week, but I had a new person that's kind of doing something similar to you. They have an online PLC training academy, and he reached out to me. His name was Robert Simmons, and yeah, he reached out to me, and so I did a little ad spot for him and a little plug, and he has a free course and an advanced course, and yeah, so I don't know. I think that's cool. I don't know. I'll not spend too much time plugging another automation training person on your podcast. But that's what's one thing that's cool is if you guys do show up on the podcast. I mean, this is kind of your podium. This is your forum for sharing your story, your business, and giving back to the community. So that's kind of the point I'm making there. So
yeah, and I having gone through creating a website to sell training and the difficulties in setting it all up and running it, now that that's done, and given the fact that there's a low profit share over at Udemy, I invite anybody who wants to film and publish training courses to contact me, because I'd be more than happy to host additional training courses over at the school. It's designed so that it's not just me teaching courses.
yeah,
and a small percentage would go to just keeping the site up and running, but I want to enable people. And I don't know everything. You know what I'm saying? Actually, yeah. I don't really know very much, but what I do know, I'm passionate about. So when it comes to Allen Bradley PLCs, HMI, SCADA, I'm all over it. But I'm not a drive expert. I'm not a VFD expert. I'm not a motion expert. And I certainly don't know GE, Siemens, and many of these other products that have huge market shares out there. So if anybody's out there and you just want to skip the whole part of creating a website and trying to build an audience, and you just want to publish a course, we would be more than happy to host it over at theautomationschool.com, because I think instructors who are investing their time, hours upon hours, and buying all this expensive equipment, they deserve more than 25% of the sale. They deserve 85 to 90% of the sale, because they're the ones doing the work. And so if anybody's interested in that, just contact me directly, insightsandautomation.com/contact. My wife's going to kill me because I'm not wearing my shirt. So kind of rearranged everything here at the last minute, so I forget to put my official polo on. But yeah, we'd love to grow it and make it a place where people can share affordable training, for the end users. And we also do have corporate customers too. We have many corporate customers, and one of the advantages for the corporate customers, they can keep track of their students' progress. So if they sign up 12 people, they can go in and see, who's gotten so far and what course and what their grades are on the quizzes and whatnot. So there's advantages there. But for the individual who wants to buy a course, they will typically get, if they buy the digital bundle, they get 2 copies. They get one copy that's on the site with the tests and whatnot. They get a second copy from Vimeo, so where they can watch it on their mobile devices offline. So if they're going on a plane, they can download it all to their iPad or phone and watch it mobilely. So God forbid a meteor hits the Berkshires and we're wiped out. You get a second copy with Vimeo. Hopefully a meteor doesn't hit Vimeo and the Berkshires at the same time. Then we're in trouble. But in any case, that was my little spiel.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that actually sparked a couple questions. I do want to get into some technical conversations with you, because
Sure.
now is our opportunity, right, to pick your brain.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
when you mentioned your wife would get mad at you for not wearing that shirt, it brought up to my attention that you and your wife actually you guys work together, right?
Yeah, my wife she works for Insights and Automation part-time, and she's also a real estate agent full-time.
Okay.
So she is such a huge help doing so. I'm a tech guy, I am just like one of those geeks that some things I just don't do well, and she does excellent. So she works with me part-time, and she's a huge help filling in all those things that I don't do well. So yeah, if it comes to programming and having a good time, then that's me. If it comes to something serious, like does that ad look correct, that's where my wife comes in.
Cool. So I really like this format, because every time I watch one of your videos, it's like, you're very professional, and you've kind of got your script all lined up, but now it's kind of more informal, and we're kind of getting to know Mr. Shawn Tierney. It's like, it's like I'm watching a video with you, but I get to interact with you and then change what actually gets said. That's kind of what I feel like I'm watching right now. Interactive Shawn Tierney training. So yeah, let's talk about that processor right there. That's is that an L7 or an L6?
It's an L6. Yeah, I want an L7. I want an L7, but they're not inexpensive yet on sale. At least last time I checked. I want an L8. I keep trying to put hints out there to Rockwell. We do reach over 25,000 people every single month. Maybe you should just let one of those fall off the back of the truck, and we'll make it worth your while. I mean, we're going to tell people how to use it, and then if they know how to use it, they'll buy more, right? But
yeah, I did read your blog post on the differences between the L7 and the L8. One of them being the onboard Ethernet. I think that's really cool, and then also like gigabit communications. Yeah. Which I think really helps out for people that are trying to do a lot of data, like for motion control. In your words, do you want to explain what some of the other differences are of the L8? And if anyone from Rockwell is watching or listening, maybe send over a processor.
So the first thing is, they don't want people calling it the L8 because it sounds like late, and the product was like, no, it wasn't late. But I wish I had one. I wish I could give you an inside scoop on what's different with it, but I don't have one. So I'd just be repeating what was in their flyers. I think when it comes to ControlLogix, the L7, the L8, I mean, they're just phenomenal processors, right? But really, if you had an L6 on the shelf, you're going to be able to do 99% of what you want to do with the L6 or even an L5. You know, I've haven't started in 1990. You know, I've used all these processors, right? Well, except for the L8, and they're all very, very powerful, as are the competitors' processors. So, I mean, it really comes down, and I say processors all the time, the controllers, but it really comes down to, you know, training, right? And you know, that's a great thing, because if you use an L1 or an L8, Studio is the same as RS Logix 5000 for all intents and purposes. I mean, they're nearly identical. So you're reusing that knowledge base you have, so you don't have to relearn everything, and that's, I think, the beauty of it. But the LA can do some phenomenal things. I mean, the L7 can do some phenomenal, being multi-core. But and I hope to learn more. I do plan on going to Automation Fair. I skipped Automation Fair last year because I went the year before. So I do plan on, especially since it's on the East Coast, as far as I understand it, I plan to go to Automation Fair and find out all the new tricks that the LA can do. But you know, I pinged Rockwell. I said, "Hey, can I get a copy of 31 so I can go over all those new features?" And I never heard back. So, yeah, what you gonna do? But yeah, so I'm not an L8 expert. I'm sorry, 5580. Let me get politically correct here. I'm not a 5580 expert yet.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, so I guess that blog post you had, you were just going off of the tech release notes. Yeah,
Yes.
I'd also like to make it to Tech Ed. I've never made it there, and it's in San Diego, right in my backyard. Well, a few hours
San
away,
Diego's
so
beautiful. Oh, it's
I'd love
beautiful.
to
I've
go
been
down
to
there.
Tech Ed. I used to love going to Tech Ed. It's a phenomenal training. In my position as an educator, it doesn't make sense, because Tech Ed today, and if you look at the way to know if Tech Ed makes sense to you is just to look at the available courses. And so most of the courses there are for beginners and moderate. I do love my favorite ones were what's new in Logix, what's new in Vue, what's new in CCW. I mean, what's new in anything. You know, those are the ones and they fill up the quickest too. But you know, most of the labs are designed for the beginner or intermediate type of customer. And if you can go, if you've never been before, but it's something difficult to go to. You know, I've been over a dozen times. It's something difficult to go to
All the time.
yeah, except for that what's new stuff. I mean, it's difficult to keep going because it's really, there's not enough new content to justify spending a week in classrooms. And when you get old like me, you don't want to spend time in classrooms anyway.
Okay.
Just,
Thanks for sharing that. I'll have to think about that. I was not really aware of the format, that it was more geared as a training event, as opposed to like I was kind of thinking it's like an industry conference kind of trade show, but it sounds like it's more of like a classroom training.
Yeah, I would definitely check. Now, because you're part of the media now, you may want to go to the media day. I did that once.
Okay.
And trying to think, was that before Tech Ed? Actually, that was actually before Automation Fair, so you may want to check into that. But
so just kind of provide media coverage and for a reduced ticket price or free, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think now. The media event was before Automation Fair, not Tech Ed. But
okay.
But yeah, Tech Ed. So Tech Ed's typically $2,000. It's definitely worth it if you want the training courses that are on the spreadsheet. Again, I've been over a dozen times. I think it's one of the best things Rockwell ever did. When it started, it was designed for integrated. Well, originally designed for specialists. So the first one we had, they used to have them locally originally, and it was designed for specialists. So they would have one for the Northeast, and there'd be 100 specialists in there, and we did really, really deep dives, and we did a lot of Q&A back and forth what the product needs based on what the end users tell us. Over time, it morphed into kind of a customer training, and so check if the lessons you want, if the courses you want are there, then definitely go. But for me, it's, you know, how many times are you going to take power programming? You know,
yeah,
there's little nuance. I mean, I get to the point where I would just sit down and go through the labs and like, okay, I'm up to speed, and just leave.
yeah,
You know, because you know, I don't know, when you spend 30 plus years using this stuff, you don't actually have to click every radio button to understand what they're doing.
yeah.
But if it's new to you, that is super helpful. Really super helpful.
So no, I totally forgot my question. Okay, Well, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So what are your what products do you feel very comfortable with?
Okay, so I basically learned PLC programming on RS Logix 500, the ladder logics and the micro logics. So, uh, gosh, I was like earlier part of this decade, so um, almost like 8 years ago,
Okay.
and it was really good. Like it's really intuitive, the ladder logic to learn PLC programming. I had done programming before, but mostly like Excel, like macros and formulas, just like and just math. Math is basically just programming and physics. It's just like physics and math. The formulas, the way they work, it's kind of like makes it's really close to programming in my mind. Like that same part of the brain, it's just like right there, right? So what was the question again?
So you started with the RS Logix 500
Okay, yeah.
and
What am I
Micrologix
Yep.
Slick 500. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got into, then where did you go from there? Did you get into panel views, HMIs, other people's
I did a
HMIs?
Wonderware. So that project I also did a Wonderware SCADA.
Okay.
And I had worked with Wonderware for a long time. My dad worked at Wonderware, and then when
Oh,
my
great.
mom, yeah, my dad worked at Wonderware like from '97 to 2001 here in Irvine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And prior to that, he worked for Tesco Controls, another large system integrator in California. And then my mom started up Waterhammer like right around '98, and so my dad was like doing industrial software sales, and then he'd have customers, and then he'd refer them to my mom to do some integration, some small projects.
Sweet.
And I mean, I was like 11 years old, and my mom was having me. My dad was having me do like quality control on the screens, like going through, clicking everything, making sure all the buttons and hyperlinks work. And so, at an early age, I was kind of exposed to the family business. And but yeah, so what softwares I'm most comfortable with? I don't really like programming in RS Logix 500 anymore. I really do prefer Studio because I want to leverage the function blocks and code modularization, and I like the logical tag names. So of the big three, Schneider Electric, Allen Bradley, and Siemens, I'd say I'm most comfortable in the Allen Bradley as far as PLC programming goes. For SCADA programming, Ignition is up there. I've done a lot of WinCC7, done some Factory Talk, some Wonderware systems, and those three are kind of all the same to me. Like there's benefits and differences to each one. Like WinCC7, it kind of works really well with if you're using Siemens controllers, so that it kind of just depends on the customer. So, but if I just had a
Sure.
choice, I'd say like Control Logics and Studio 5000 would be the way what I would be most comfortable in.
Still feel comfortable with InTouch?
Yeah,
Do they still call it InTouch?
yeah. So so InTouch is what I learned on, and InTouch by itself is still like the same product. But then obviously they had the system platform, and Orchestra Graphics and the managed InTouch application. And then you got your whole full blown Galaxy Orchestra applications. And then they came out with a new product called InTouch OMI. The acronym of which is slipping me right now. It's like Object Machine Interface or Operational Machine Interface, something like that. Where it's a lot more modern, where you kind of like configure a hierarchy of equipment, and then all the screens kind of dynamically generate themselves, and it's like multi-touch. So that product I haven't worked a whole lot with, and also like system platform I haven't really done a full system on. So yeah, InTouch standalone, is still like it's what I learned on, so it's still going to be there. It's like riding a bike, you never lose it. But if I was going to go start up a new application today, I would maybe not look at InTouch. I would look at maybe InTouch OMI. If I was going to stay within that brand, look at InTouch OMI or InTouch Machine Edition, or maybe System Platform if I was doing a full like manufacturing plan or something. So, what about yourself? What software and hardware platforms are you most comfortable with?
Well, in the automation world, I in 1990s when I got that job in for a distributor, and as a specialist, doing support. I'm not really a salesperson, as my wife will tell you. Um, and probably everybody who ever worked with me will tell you. But in any case, I started out. I did get some experience with the PLC2. Um,
Oh wow.
and I do avoid. I do have a couple of PLC2s here. I don't actually have the software, but um, I really like the PLC5 because one of the things the PLC5 does is it introduced actual letters. So now you knew a timer began with T. It was like, great, I don't have to remember. It's like word 200 or 300.
Oh, okay.
It's like
Okay.
T for timer. That was great. And it was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is awesome. We actually have letters, not just numbers anymore, So
Wow.
being a big basic programmer as a kid, you come to like letters. So anyways, PLC5, Slick 500. I actually want to do seminars on these so you can't see the Slick 500. I moved it, but
Still a lot of them out there. Yeah.
because when you first learn on something, it's like always have fond memories of my VIC-20 and Commodore 64 because I started with them,
Yeah.
And so PLC5, Slick 500, I just when you feel like a command of something, it's just, there's an affinity there that's like, wow, I can make this thing dance. But and then Logix, of course, when it came out, and of course all the micros. I'm now a fan of the Micro 800, having taught a course on it. I'm now a fan of it. I was like, stay away. And it's funny to see people coming new into the business, starting with Studio 5000 or starting with CCW.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these comments on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, I would never use RS Logix 500. Well, you probably would if you had a choice between RS Logix 500 and AI or 6200.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You'd be like, this is the best thing since sliced bread.
That is really funny that you mentioned that. Because I that same problem you had from like PLC2 to and that same breakthrough that you had with going to RS Logix 500, having those letters is like me going from those letters like B300 N70 to pump one dot running or PIT 101 dot pressure or whatever, right? So it's like what do you think is gonna be that next step? What do you see the future of these platforms and automation over the next 5-10 years? Where do you see that going?
Well, and that's a great question because in my mind, I'm writing a book about set 20 years in advance, and I just figured because I know it, I'll make one of the characters a controls engineer. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, when's the L10 and L11, and can we make any other funny things up like the L8? Could we do anything with that? And it's hard. Red's about to release, first of all, we got 5G coming, right? So the world we've always lived in, right? And I'm sure some people in the 70s and 80s probably lived in a time before this. But since I've been a kid, the world has changed drastically every decade, right? Things just change. I mean, I get to see the Berlin Wall fall. Well, not on TV. I get to see it on TV.
Yeah.
The space shuttle launch and then blow up and just, the world has changed. We started out with cassettes. I still have a whole bunch of cassettes in the garage here. So things change fast, but in the industrial side, they change a little bit slower. Yeah. I was about to mention, I talked about 5G coming out next year. I'm still rocking an old iPhone 5 because I just think all phones stink. They all stink. But, 5G is coming out, so maybe I'll get a new phone. But, Red's coming out with a holographic display this summer, right?
Oh, right. Red Hydrogen 1.
Yes, the hydrogen. You got it. You know what I'm talking about. So, we're getting ready to do another transformational stage, and I don't know what it is. Some of the stuff Rockwell's releasing because that's what I'm most familiar with, and I try to keep up on the other guys. I really got to find some good salespeople for the other guys who can like Wonderware and Siemens and whatnot, so they can give me regular updates because I just love this stuff. It doesn't matter what the name brand is, I love it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what will be the next thing? Just when Rockwell was talking about the L7 when it was just coming out and talking about what they could do with having 2 cores instead of just one, just amazing stuff. Some of the things never came out. Things happen, right?
Yeah.
But other things like having all your documentation in the controller because we just added a bunch of extra memory in there.
Yeah. Let's not forget to mention that part. That's a huge thing,
Well, right. I mean, the first thing me and my friends did is we used it as a chat room. So we were both connected to the. Oh, I probably shouldn't do that. We're both connected to the same L7, and we're changing the descriptions as we go. We're like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm doing great. Oh, that's good." So, that and it works and it's real, and so, what does the future hold? I mean, faster. Everything's going to be faster.
Right.
Okay. Um, but what else does it hold? I've been thinking a lot about that. I mean, gigabit. I mean, just gigabit networking for IO. I mean, can the IO even keep up now? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, really, I mean, how long does it take that electricity to come down the wire to tell the transistor that it's on? I mean, we're communicating at speed so fast that physical devices in the field are going to seem like they're ancient, by comparison. They're super slow. And
Uh-huh.
then, I mean, really, with one L7, you can run an entire plant. Now, would you really want to? You know, single point of failure and all that, but think about it. I mean, an L10, right?
Yeah.
You could run a huge plant with that, probably, right? I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know where it's going. Do you have any insights, any thoughts or predictions of where the
Yeah.
technology is going?
Yeah. Thank you. So I agree. Everything's going to be faster, quicker, smaller, hopefully, cheaper as well. Like, I mean, the price as a dollar amount might get higher, but the value, like what you're getting for what you're paying, hopefully should, be greatly increased over time. Um, as long as it doesn't follow like the return on college costs, how it's like going up 10,000% or something, far
Oh,
exceeding
don't get me
inflation, right?
started.
So it's like
Don't get me
there's
started.
there's really two groups of like costs. There's costs that get more expensive over time, and there's costs that get less expensive over time. Like technology, TVs. Oh, sorry, they're going down, but like houses, they're roughly staying the same actually. And then medical care, student loans, it's like you see their inflation costs are just ridiculous. But so I back to automation. I see like small incremental improvements. User interface improvements, more modernization, kind of simplifying some of those tasks that like we find repetitive. Import and export capabilities between PLCs and HMI vendors, and then I also see like a lot of applications that are coming out that kind of take some of the PLC coding work off of your hands and kind of turning it more into. Sorry, when I shake the table, like the camera shakes. Like, have you heard of the software called I think it's Wonder Logics?
I've heard of it. I haven't looked into it.
So I see something like that being pretty cool, where they're basically abstracting the RS Logics and Studio 5000 code into like a drag and drop interface. While its feature set may not be fully that of what the control logics can do for probably most programs, you can take like a junior control engineer and you read the specifications. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience doing the code to understand that, hey, when this tank gets above this level, we need this pump to turn on, and you kind of design that into a workflow, and then it generates the source code for you. So I don't know. I see things like that becoming more common, whether it's that specific product or other ones. Like there's one for the Schneider Electric family. I think it's called Prometheus. It's kind of like a configuration environment where it'll generate actually any IEC code for, so if you can actually use it with the other platforms as well. So things like that. I think I've always said like, man, I don't it kind of sounds weird saying this, like, but as a PLC programmer, I don't really want to think about like the bit and the byte level. Like I kind of want to take those things for granted and just work on the higher level things. And maybe that makes me sound like I'm not a true hardcore programmer. Not that I don't understand like the bitwise operation and little endian and big endian. It's just like stuff that I don't want to really care about. Like I want the data types to kind of be taken care of for me. If I have a 32-bit or a 64-bit, just have that taken care of behind the scenes for me. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I'm a child of the '80s, and I would be always fearful if we could not see the base code. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
I'm all for modular programming and adding blocks together to create a routine. But and there may not be a need to see the raw code, but as somebody who grew up in that period where my thing when I was 10 was programming,
Hmm.
and that's what we did. It wasn't the latest app that we could press buttons on. It was like writing apps. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
I always want to be able to get to the raw code, the understand. And I think today our electricians and technicians and plants are the same way. They want to understand. They don't want to just say, this routine stops a pump when it's supposed to stop. That's not what they want to know how it does it. They really want to know the
Yeah.
guts. But conceptually, as any programmer, you don't want to write the same code over and over again.
Oh,
And
of course not.
that's one of my biggest fallacies is I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. Having grown up with computers, I mean, I do it once, it is done.
Yeah.
And that's where the modular programming is so great because you design something that works flawlessly. You want that to be an AOI, and you want to be able to reuse it. But you also want the ability to go in there and tweak it as you need, because we all know there's no two systems that are, well, 99% of the time, the system you're working on is not going to be the same as the last one.
Yeah.
Almost every site has subtle differences that are going to require you to do things differently. And quite honestly, every plant has its own culture, and they're going to want things a little different. Not that it makes sense. It's just that there's different people working there. So you got to adapt to that. So no, I fear that we get to a point where there will be, when it comes to my car, right? And it had all, I got my car in 2011. The newest thing then was the automatic
OnStar.
cruise control.
Oh,
No, no,
auto.
no, no, no. The automatic, what do they call it? I can't remember. I can't. But anyways,
Dynamic cruise control.
dynamic cruise control. I forget what they call it. I got a Dodge Charger, and I'm telling people about this all the time. But anyways, I just set it at, well, what I should. I mean, this isn't the public. I just set it at
55.
65.
Yeah.
I set it at 60. No, I never set it at 65. But anyways, I set it at whatever. And it just, it's dynamic. If a car's going slow in front of me, it slows the car down. I do not want to mess with that programming. That is a safety feature of the car. I do not want to tweak that and change that. But when it comes to, writing a custom program to control a custom system, I do want to be able to get into the guts of that. So I hope we always have the ability to do that,
Okay.
and tweak the code to make it, because the physical manufacturing environment, it's dynamic. I mean, again, you can produce machines. OEMs will tell you this. They produce machines all the time, but there's usually little differences because they're getting different products. Things phase out, things phase in, so you got to have that ability and to tweak things. I do see. I mean, and I don't know if we have time to talk about this, but I see 3D printing really affecting manufacturing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think the way like online stores are affecting our brick and mortar stores now, and how that's transforming our personal lives by having UPS show up every day to deliver something new.
Yeah.
I really see 3D printing. I mean, think about the stuff we buy and how much of it could be locally 3D printed.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean for the future? And how is that going to change manufacturing? Um,
Yeah. Like
it's amazing.
that is a really cool point. Like, what if your local Rockwell distributor or whomever, instead of like having that card shipped in from wherever, you get an order in and they just print it up for you right there. It's just maybe a simple circuit board, and then the firmware gets loaded via 5G just directly to the controller, and it gets licensed, and it's out there the next day. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, you think about so much of what we use. Um, paper products that this is something, people may say, well, 3D printing, that sounds real far-fetched, but most paper products are made locally, right? I mean, well, they used to be anyways. I've been into tons of plants, trying to plants, other plants where they make paper products. I mean, they're just so cheap and so light, and you just crank them out by the millions,
Yeah.
right? And you think about bolts and nuts and washers. There's plants all over the world, you know. So really, 3D printing is just an extension of what we already do with easily stamped out products. But it'll change. I think it really will change manufacturing, and there'll be. I mean, it'll change shopping too, because a lot of what you would want could just be 3D printed
Print it
on the spot.
print it at home or whatever.
Yeah. Why pay all that money to ship it when you could just print it down the street?
Yeah.
Why ship it across the country when you can print it locally? So it'll be interesting to see. But that's my segue.
Any last closing remarks before we end this episode of the Zack Scriven podcast, Mr. Shawn Tierney?
Well, I want to thank you very much for having me on the show. I usually am camping at this time, so if I haven't been very coherent, that's why. Um, I just want to thank everybody who checks out the blog. So many great comments, so many great people coming over and thanking me. It just that is what, and you kind of alluded to this early in the show when you talked about your plant PAX response. Um, you know, thank you for all the great feedback, everybody, because even on LinkedIn, when people say, hey, thank you, that was helpful, it energizes you and
Yeah.
people like us,
Oh yeah.
to keep going and keep sharing and try to keep helping people. And so I just want to thank everybody, especially my students who allow me to continue making lessons, because that's what I want to do, is just teach as many people as I can, as much as I can. So just a huge thank you to you and to all of them.
Well, thank you, Shawn, and thank you, viewers, for tuning into this episode of the Zack Scriven podcast. Shawn, it's been a pleasure. You are an invaluable resource to the community. We'll see you in another episode, guys, of the Zack Scriven podcast. Peace out.
Zach, thanks.